First of all, I'd like to thank the organisers for inviting me. In this presentation, I'm going to describe my experience of a whole year's English language teacher training that is taking place entirely online. It hasn't quite finished yet. I was appointed as the trainer by the director of NILE, Tom Kiddle, as NILE and the British Council Uzbekistan have a long association. To get started, I'll make my first reference to a general feedback questionnaire that I have just conducted with the teachers using Moodle. They've been most forthcoming in their gratitude to NILE and the British Council. They are well aware that this unique opportunity was created especially for them. It was healthy to see in the questionnaire that every teacher felt that they could benefit from more training. And it was at first surprising to see that a quarter of the teachers are very satisfied with their own teaching. But question 3 invited the teachers to comment on their responses to questions 1 and 2, and some of them wrote that they were satisfied because of the training they had had. Now, just a quick timeline to get us started. I arrived in Tashkent in August 2019 and started training teachers in face-to-face sessions, some intensive courses, and I observed 50 lessons up until lockdown was imposed. In the last 2 months of the training period, there were no ICT options, so I wrote up all the training that I had given and was going to give into a manual called the English Language Teaching Methodology Manual. And that was the end of the first year. And then during the summer, I made some wonderful trips, including swimming in the Aral Sea and a visit to the Savitsky Gallery in Nukus. Very highly recommended. And I also edited the ELT-MM for general publication, and it is now known as the Book of How to Do Things in ELT. In September, the training program started its second year, and this time we were well prepared for online training. In the autumn phase, training involved these sorts of things, which we'll look at later, and then in the new year, I wrote a 10-week course for the teachers. It was called 4 Skills or 5. It included some aspects of testing skills, but after this course, there was another course in testing and assessment that ran for 2 months. And this more or less brings us up to today. So let's have a look now at some aspects of the training as an online experience. One thing we can say about e-learning is that anywhere, anytime training, the education extends beyond the classroom and the traditional workday. I'm referring here to in-service training only. All of my teachers are working full-time and doing this training on top of their normal workload, which has the advantage of the teachers participating when it suits them. The advantage for management is that they don't have to make times available when the teachers could attend training, or organising weeks when the teachers could participate in intensive courses. But some of the teachers were put at a considerable disadvantage by their limited access to computers, the internet, and sometimes both. Many of them did the course entirely on their mobile phones. Now, Moodle is programmed using responsive HTML, which means that it works very well on browsers of all sizes. But still, contributing to forums and wikis is quite demanding from a phone, especially for us digital immigrants. They were heroic. Here are the topics we covered in the first 3 months. It was a sort of blended learning format. Teachers did coursework related to these topics and discussed their experiences via various Moodle resources in their own time. And we met on Zoom once a week. The teachers worked in pairs, taking it turns week by week to give a demo lesson of something from our ELT-MM. This meant that they could experience the activities as teachers and through acting in the roles of students. With all the teachers in one classroom, Zoom was ideal for this. I often recorded specific presentations and uploaded them to my YouTube channel for those who were unable to attend. If you're interested, you can find links to them on my website. Right, so that was the autumn course in a nutshell. It was time now to do some serious training in teaching and assessing the 4 skills. Lesson observations played a big role in the first year's training. As we were working entirely online this year, we came up with the following procedure. A teacher would create a lesson plan and submit it to the Moodle forum called Lesson Observations. I would then read it and give feedback and upload the annotated version to the forum. The teacher would resubmit, get feedback, and in a sort of process writing loop, this would continue until the lesson plan was ready to be taught. Immediately after teaching this lesson, the teacher completed and submitted a lesson reflection form, and I would watch the video and write an observation report bearing in mind the teacher's reflections. The final step was the teacher writing a short feed-forward text that demonstrates what they learnt from the experience that could influence their future teaching. The Moodle forum was well suited to this, especially as the process could be observed by all the other teachers. This process continued through the whole year. The focus of the first year's training had revolved around the 4 systems, which are mostly on the right here. In CEFR terms, these are communicative language competences. These cover the 4 systems and a lot of other aspects of language teaching in general. During the previous year, I had observed 50 lessons, and there would have been 70 had the pandemic not struck. Not one of these lessons revolved around teaching a specific skill. The CEFR categorizes the 4 skills as communicative language activities and strategies. In the textbooks that the teachers and students use, there are many little segments of skills training, especially micro skills, but there are no skills lessons per se, neither singly nor as integrated skills lessons. So, new year, new course, entitled 4 Skills or 5. The 10-week course revolved around these topics. It was quite time-consuming, and the teachers were doing it in their own time on top of their normal daily work. A couple of teachers messaged me that they would have been happy with even more than the course provided, but most of them found the course adequate, if not overwhelming at times. Remember that teachers are husbands and wives and mothers and fathers, and about a third of my teachers are PhD students at the moment on top of all of this. This screenshot shows the top of the course. The top row of buttons are to such things as announcements, the Moodle help manual, and to the Versatile wiki, which I'm slowly building for any courses on this site to access. The second row of buttons takes the participants to each section, each week's work, diving in, CEFR, linguistics and language, reading, speaking, writing, listening, integrated skills, roundup, and resources. In contrast to the autumn course, this one ran in lockstep. Lockstep means that everyone needs to be doing the same tasks around the same time, or at least within the same week. This is especially important when participants are contributing to wikis and forums. It was also an effective extrinsic motivator. This screenshot shows the top of week 6, speaking, just as an example. Each week has 6 tasks that involve watching instructional videos, reading specific sections from our teacher training books and from the Versatile wiki. The teachers were doing quizzes, some teaching quizzes, some testing quizzes. They were contributing new information to our course wiki, reflecting on their learning, discussing professional experiences related to the unit's topic, and uploading examples of their work and things that they had tried out with their students. There were also live Zoom sessions with me and then later with 2 testing experts from NILE. Now, I would like to say a few things about training generally, to explain why we did what we did and the benefits of doing it how we did and the challenges. In teacher training, we aim to develop teaching skills. In contrast with pre-service teacher training, teachers who already have some years of experience, and some of my teachers have over 30 years experience, training involves supplementing and substituting. Supplementing is the easier part of teacher training. We get the teachers to try out new activities, and if they like them, they will think about using them. However, one of the complaints I used to hear in other training situations was the lack of time teachers had to use these new activities with their students. This motivated me to focus on systems training. I wanted to help teachers teach grammar and vocabulary and pronunciation better, and these would substitute what is in their books. But this raises the serious issue of challenging teachers' beliefs about the linguistic aspect of new teaching procedure, or how students actually learn from this, as well as what is involved practically. And there are many aspects of each of these three core areas of our profession that are constantly being explored. A huge amount of progress was made in communicative language teaching at the end of the 20th century, but research and development are never-ending cycles and pendulums. I won't talk through all of these now, but feel free to stop the video and explore them. They are but a small sample of the many areas of our field. The main thing is that if a trainer wants teachers to change some aspect of their teaching, we need to provide them with adequate reason or enough justification to believe in the ways of doing things. No teacher is happy teaching in ways that they don't believe in. At the bottom left, you'll see visual representations of relationships between vocabulary items. As a teacher trainer, a language teacher, and a language student, I have been very interested in trying to represent how words are stored in our minds, and getting students to do so also, and their teachers. This is a far cry from bilingual lists, gap fills, memorizing prefixes and suffixes, translating sentences, and matching synonyms and antonyms, all of which are, of course, useful. Here you can see how information and knowledge can be presented to show patterns and relationships graphically. The process of creating these is a strong learning experience, not only in terms of language learning, but in the process of clarifying the meanings and the content that they express. If we want our students to remain productively engaged throughout a long learning trajectory, activity types that match their linguistic development and maturity are needed to respect their intelligence and sustain their motivation. I'd like to spend a minute now to show you my favorite online tool. It's my favorite because I designed it and a colleague programmed it for me. In Versatext, you paste a text into the input field, then click the word cloud button. Voila! Dozens of activities can be done with word clouds, especially since the size of words represents frequency of the word in the text and the color represents its part of speech. In Versatext, you can also customize the word cloud. Anyway, you click on a word and see its concordance. You see the multiple code texts of the word as it is used in the text that you and your students are working with. Much can be learnt about vocabulary and grammar from concordances and about the content of the text itself. The other tool in Versatext is the profiler, which provides statistics about the text, including an estimate of its CEFR level. Further down the profiler page, there are tables of the words from the text organized by frequency and parts of speech. Now I'd like to say a few words about how ICT is meant to work in teaching and training. You might remember this oft-quoted remark by Arthur C. Clarke. It was in the 1970s. At that time, education was focused on filling students' minds with information, at a time when computers were showing the potential to be useful sources of information. That was in the days when we spoke of IT. But now we speak of ICT, and this C makes all the difference. For decades now, we no longer believe that education is a process of pouring information into people's heads. For teachers and students to incorporate new findings into their thinking, which is an act of knowledge creation, they need to learn about these things from multiple sources in various formats and engage considerable critical and creative thinking in the process. And as we acquire new data and information from our 5 senses, or 6, from books, from friends, from the internet, the press, and from the more knowledgeable others, as Vygotsky had it, they hook onto the information we already have. And this reshapes our information. The information we hold is always in a state of flux. And as it forms new relationships in our minds, this influences how we understand the world and how we function in it. Knowledge is created. Knowledge is, of course, a very subjective and personal feature of every individual. As the teachers were working through the course material and doing the tasks, they engaged with Moodle's main instruments of knowledge creation, namely the wiki and the forum. Martin Duguyamas created Moodle to enable social construction of knowledge in online formats. This was part of his PhD. Its title here is in italics. Social constructivism recognizes the importance of social interactions, collaboration, and connections in the learning process. In the 4 skills course, we had 1 forum per unit, as there were plenty of opportunities to share information and experiences and to ask questions. There was 1 wiki for the whole course, and it aimed to accumulate information and resources and links. And because wikis associate ideas via keywords that occur on different pages, wikis are like a neural network. The information is linked in the wikis as it is in our minds. The task was complex and challenging for the teachers, but they really made a sterling effort. Given these applications of forums and wikis, I regard the former as subjective and the latter objective. Let's see what the teachers have to say. So let's just look at the words in bold here. They wrote, forums are a great chance to share opinions, a clear understanding developed. But they were not keen to show or share their own opinions, some wrote. Preference for real-time synchronous discussion of ideas. And about wikis, comments on knowledge creation through wikis, learned how to connect key ideas across pages, researching and selecting before contributing, very important. But the Moodle wiki was not easy to use, especially when grappling with the concept of wikis in general. The teachers had many experiences during the year. These included trying out things with their students and describing them in forums, and sometimes uploading their examples of work. There were many tasks and activities built into the training, and the use of various Moodle tools were experiences in themselves. But, as John Dewey said, we don't learn from an experience, we learn from reflecting on an experience. It's important to encourage teachers to reflect. This is something they can do alone, at first. Reflective writing requires us to put into words the relationships between the ideas that we hold. And as the American poet Robert Frost said, I write to find out what I didn't know I knew. I always find that this is true every time I write, even in preparing this presentation. New connections between ideas that I have long held have formed. So, this brings to a close my presentation on some of the rewards and challenges of this year's online teacher training. If you would like to follow up anything in this presentation, please visit my website. You will find here my books and articles and, of course, the VersaText tool. I'm always happy to share. Along with the teachers I've been working with for 2 years, I too would like to express my gratitude to the British Council and NILE. 2 years living in Central Asia, working with and meeting remarkable people has been a life-changing experience for me. I thank you and my teachers and their institutions from the very bottom of my heart. And of course, thank you to the organisers of this conference.